first podcast with Howard Gross, the CEO and co-founder of Gross Klein. Howard, it's a pleasure to have you on the call. We're very excited to delve deeper into exploring how technology and especially AI and digital tools are reshaping the financial services, and hopefully learn a few things from you over the line as well.
Yeah, well, I think you'll be teaching me more on AI than I could ever know. We've really been doing AI for years because the technology's been there. It's now, I think, it's a very clever marketing method by calling the development of technology AI. The big tech companies are going to earn a lot more money because they've got a new product.
100%.
And all it is a development of what we've been doing for years. So that's my view anyway, but I'm sure they'd say that's something different.
So Howard, for you, so what would you say is the biggest challenges affecting financial decisions made for both businesses and individuals today? That
The
you
government.
Toast to that.
Well, I've already seen it in my office with the non-dom changes. We've acted for an entertainer from abroad for several years who's got a home here and has been a non-dom. He's now quit. But his management company have done me a great favour. They just said, we found another entertainer who does the same thing. Would you act for them? Which I will do, because the first few years it won't make a lot of difference. But to get a visa, that is very expensive. And you need a lawyer. You don't need an accountant for that. It's just so complicated and very costly, which will put people off. But as you know, the Chancellor has decided that we're going to relieve some of the pressures on non-doms so that the millions of millionaires that have left might come back.
Yeah.
So, because they spend money here, and that's where they don't seem to understand, and they may be beginning to get the message. This is a good time for your first podcast, because today the Bank of England is going to change interest rates, we hope. That means the government has to spend less money, because the government borrows so much money. The higher the interest rate, the more it pays. And that impacts on business, because they then don't need to increase tax, we hope, on business anymore, like the national insurance. That is also having a big effect on clients. One client phoned me up and was going through it with me of what the extra cost was going to be. And another client's already closed an office and has made somebody redundant. It's just really frustrating, especially for the bigger firms, who big companies who want to do development. I mean, as you know, there's a lot of people that are leaving jobs, they're being made redundant. Yeah. And we hear government say, well, we're going to do this development and that development and create 100,000 jobs, but that's in 10 years' time. Yeah. In my opinion, it's not now. And we need people to work to get growth.
Yeah, 100%.
You've got to spend money. You've got to spend the money. If you don't spend the money, there's no growth.
Yeah.
And at the moment, there's so many people who are not well, whether that's from COVID or the outcome of COVID, not necessarily COVID. I don't know. It's just very, very frustrating when you hear so many people that are on benefit. Why? Maybe I'm old-fashioned. It didn't happen in my day. You just didn't. You just went to work. Yeah. And that's how it is.
From my experience of kind of seeing people on the benefits, sometimes they like to take advantage of the benefits they can get from the government and try to move away from thinking, I don't have to work. I can just get my benefits and be happy. But I think it's due to the fact the way the government are looking to structure things. They're letting the poor kind of stay, obviously not poor, but the less unfortunate people stay in that position and be scared to work, essentially.
Yeah, well, that's at the moment we've got a lot of promises being made, but not much is happening. I think that's, and I'm saying this from talking to clients, not just my personal view, although some of this is my personal view, but clients are all complaining. I never talked politics to any client for many, many, many years until about 2 years ago. Now, every other conversation is what's going to happen next? How are we going to cope? Will we have a good business in 12 months' time? It's really very frustrating. But if you're really good at what you do, you'll find a way. and that's what you've got to do. But what's worrying me is that the younger ones that are very ill or are off work now are going to suffer from they need the experience. That's the problem. They're not going to get you guys have been around, you've been to different jobs, you've got experience from those jobs. But if you're ill for 5 years, you've lost 5 years of your life experience. And that worries me.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Who knows what's going to happen when we keep hearing all the promises.
Yeah.
So,
I think, sorry, go on.
Yeah. Okay, so when I say AI is incredibly important, there's no question that in time, I'll say something which will upset my profession, there won't be the need for the chartered accountant that I am. AI will take over a lot of the bookkeeping work, a lot of the day-to-day mundane work that an accountant or a bookkeeper does. What you'll need the accountant for is to train your computer to get the entries right and to put them in the right place.
Yeah. Would you say the benefits of utilizing AI tools to transform their business, do you see them as, do you see the benefits very clear, or do you think there still will be challenges in regards to it?
Well, there's always going to be challenges on something new, but and I know because I was the first firm in London to put a certain accounting system in. But in the long run, the owner of a business will be able to press a button and get a profit and loss account come up to see what's going on very quickly. He won't have to wait for a quarterly VAT return. I mean, we do quarterly VAT returns and we do quarterly accounts with it, but businesses need to know much more quickly than that. The same with collecting debts. It'll be much easier because all the data will be there for that person, and you'll press a button or click on your mouse and it'll send the message out straight away. Yeah. Okay, I mean, that nowadays you've got to go and look at a list and choose who you want to send it to. Well, you'll be able to train your PC to do that for you.
Yeah.
And that's why I said my job would change. I'm what one might call a good old-fashioned GP, general practitioner. I can do a bit of everything. But now technology's gone so far that there won't be many GPs in future. There will be specialists. A specialist auditor, specialist forensic accountant, a specialist tax advisor, specialist advising and coaching business. And that's how I see my profession going, really coaching and mentoring.
That's really interesting. I did want to ask you in relation to the financial side of things, like what common pitfalls in financial management have you observed, and do you think that might hinder long-term growth?
It's normally startups where the very brave people like yourself have a go, and they don't know what's going to come next. And so when it does come up, something that's new, you've not got the experience to cope with it, and then you can make mistakes because you would think you could do it your way, which is nothing wrong with that. But sometimes it goes wrong. Sometimes it works better than the way it's been done before.
Yeah.
And things like debt collection, or it gets to a point where it's not worth spending the money on debt collection for a couple of grand because it'll cost you that in legal fees. And the time that it takes you to prepare is different. If you're selling a service, it's one thing. If you're selling a product, it's another. It's much easier to claim on a product than it is on a service. And so they're the things that you will learn as you go. Maybe if the education system trained people in business more and financial matters more, it would help. Because most teenagers come out of school and they must really come out with a national insurance card, and that's about it. They don't know about how to open a bank account. They don't know about anti-money laundering. They don't know about the ID that's got to take place. And all those things are then new, and they can irritate. Yeah. But we just got used to it. It's every new client, we have to do due diligence on every new client. I mean, that's filling in several, well, I say filling in several pages. It's sometimes quicker than doing it on the PC. But whether it's on the PC or it's on paper, you've still got to do it.
Yeah. Do you think the way you currently do it in terms of like filling paper, do you think there is some kind of AI tool that's out there or some kind of automation that could actually do that job for you, where it would be an easier process for you?
Absolutely. There's absolutely no way that shouldn't happen. The reason why some of us use pen and paper is we were never trained to type.
Got you.
So if you see good emails from me, you'll find lots of spelling mistakes in them. The AI isn't good enough to correct them all. And that's, yes, it's going to change. I mean, it's going to change. This reality. It's changing. Mr. Musk can fly a space rocket up and then the main body comes down and it gets caught.
And it's perfect.
Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. You know, the fact that you can fly it up and then let it drop and then catch it. It's just incredible. And so things are going to change. You know, there'll be colonies on the moon one day. There's no question that things will go on. Well, we saw space flights to the moon years ago, and then it sort of faded away. This week we've seen the new Concorde. No, Concorde was a fabulous plane. There was one terrible accident, and then they dropped it. Now the Americans are up with the new Concorde, which will now go even faster. To get to New York in 3 or 4 hours is phenomenal. So
that'd be amazing. That'd be handy.
They're now saying that's new technology. No, it's not. It was there years ago. They just developed it now because for some reason nobody could afford to rebuild Concorde after the accident. And nobody wanted to run the risk. And all that accident was caused by a bit of metal on the runway. A tire burst, I think, on a runway as it hit a piece of metal. So technology is going to keep going and going and going. You wait till you guys have got a chip inside you. My dog's got a chip in it.
Yes, Howard, you mentioned this when we spoke 2 days ago. You mentioned that your dog has a chip.
Well, the dog's got a chip in it. You can find the dog if it gets lost. And you can measure its blood pressure. You can do its temperature. And Mr. Musk has already started that in America with humans. It won't be long, guys. You will all have a chip. And the chip will be talking to you. And it will tell you what's going on all the time, and then it'll link to your glasses, and you'll be able to, like Google Glasses were a few years ago, you'll be able to watch this podcast on your glasses without a headset, because the chip will be telling you what the sound is.
Well, Howard, it's honestly it's crazy the way technology is growing. But do you think because I think with the new adoption of technology, people are embracing, but at the same time, people are staying away from it. So do you think it's more about a mindset shift, or just being more open to adopting it, new tools?
People don't like change. I've seen it right throughout my career. People do not like change. They're scared of it. And instead of embracing it and suffering from it, which I do regularly when we try to do upgrades on a PC and it doesn't work, or Microsoft. No, I must mention the name. If one of the technology companies does an upgrade, you'll find the following day there's a problem, and you don't know because nobody's told you that the cloud that we're in has done an upgrade for you, and it doesn't work that morning. There's that, and hacking. There's a lot of hacking going on. I'm sure that a couple of banks have had that in the last few days, but they'll say that it wasn't. But there's so much trouble all around the world now with people being spiteful and getting data. That's what it's all about. So you can then have these horrible scams that take place.
Yeah.
So that's another big problem. How do you cope with it?
Yeah.
So anybody that wants to cheat the system, if they're on the wrong side of the law, will know every way to do it.
100%, and they'll also be the ones that.
How do you protect your client from it?
Yeah, exactly. And those people that are on the other side of the law, they will be adopting the new technology to make sure they're leveraging it as well to keep.
Yeah, well, they go into the bank. They'll have the right passport, one of many. They'll have the right passport. They'll have the right background information, the right approvals from different people, references, and everything else. They know they've got to have that, so they'll have it all. There've been 1 or 2 times in my career where I've met 1 or 2 people where I've not wanted to act for them. Somebody comes in and says, I've got 50 companies, can you act for them? And I think, no, don't really want to do this. Why would they want to come to me when they've got 50 companies?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's changing, and it's change. People are fearful of change. Now the question then is, how can you train people not to be scared of change?
100%. But I think at the same time, a lot of people are afraid of losing that human touch as well. So I can imagine, you must imagine when you're doing financial planning and tax planning with some of your clients, they do appreciate that interaction with the human touch. So I think that's another reason why people are a bit more hesitant to adopt it. But I think people need to realize it's not about complete adoption, it's about the complementation of the human touch with the AI assistance as well.
Yeah, but look, today we are having a conversation on screen. You two might be in different offices, I don't know. I'm in a different office. We've got perfect sound, we've got perfect vision. It's a change, but there's some people who do not want to have a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting or a Google Meets meeting. They just don't want to do it. But over the last couple of years since COVID, there are very few meetings that I've had to go to. Everybody the majority would rather come on screen. And with the phone issue and WhatsApp, people are using WhatsApp a lot because you can phone all around the world at no cost.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. So it is, again, getting used to the technology, and because there's been a generation of senior citizens who for the last 20 years have been saying, oh, we can't do this, we don't want it. But now there's very few senior citizens that don't have a mobile phone.
Very true.
20 years ago, they wouldn't do it. You know, and I have meetings regularly with some of the voluntary things that I do where I just say, where's your app? You know, you can't do things anymore without an app because it's on the phone. And Generation Z only know a phone. They don't want a laptop. You know? And what with Samsung and what they're doing with their shouldn't give them a plug, with their Z Fold, which I've got one here with me because I use one, where you've got a screen effectively in your hand. And it's got three screens. So you've got one, which if you just use it as a normal phone, and if you want to have a conversation with somebody or do something like this, just open it up and you can use it as another screen. So it's just fantastic. The technology is absolutely fantastic if you use it properly. But my team, to get them to use the second screen has been interesting. I mean, but I had two for years, and the only reason I got three is that when the box packed up and I had to replace it, everybody said, get a laptop. And I said, well, that's not powerful enough. And they said, you've got to be kidding. And then you buy the docking station and you just plug it in, and you've got three screens.
Yeah, well,
fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's going to help business as well, because when they want to look at their accounts, they can look at their accounts and have one screen up. They can look at the debt collection on another screen. They can look at their plans if they're designing or building something on another screen. And that's just wonderful. As you know, if you've been in financial markets, most of the guys there have got several screens in front of them, and all around the room there are screens.
Yeah. That's crazy. Howard, I did want to ask, just in relation to tax planning and business growth, are there any major operational bottlenecks that you encounter or your team?
Yeah, a thing called HMRC. The taxes and VAT, and that's about to change again. Not just VAT, the way that the accounts are dealt with by HMRC is different. It's going to be a big challenge over the next 12 to 15 months. HMRC are introducing making tax digital, which means businesses will be filing not only their VAT return every quarter, but all their transactions every quarter. Now, whether it's a quarter or 4 monthly, I don't know, because they're still deciding what they're going to do. But I guess it will be quarterly, and then somebody will wake up to the fact that you might as well do the VAT return and the accounting all at the same time. Yeah. And then they'll be using AI to study the transactions. And if the transactions don't fit, then an inquiry will go out to the taxpayer, who will then go to their accountant. And the accountant will then have to spend the next 18 months or longer or less or more, depending what the inquiry is, sorting out the inquiry.
Yeah.
It now has a posh name, inquiry. It used to be called an investigation, but they had to be nice now, so they call it inquiry.
Yeah,
my clients are all insured against a tax inquiry, so and there's no excess. And the nice thing is that we can deal with it. That doesn't make life easy for us because the insurer makes sure that we don't waste any time. Yeah. That's another tough thing that the accountant has to put up with, but it's worth it. It means the client who's going to suffer whilst it's going on. There's no question that people get terribly frustrated and frightened whilst the inquiry goes on.
Yeah.
And it's you've got to know that as an accountant, that those people are going through a really tough time. And hopefully at the end of it, you'll be successful and you'll win the inquiry. But during that time, it is really very frustrating for the client. It also can affect their business.
Yeah.
How
long does it tend to come back for the inquiry? How long roughly does it take for them to do the inquiry and then come back with an answer?
Well, we've got to give the answer. Yeah. They've got to decide whether they like the answer. It takes normally, I would say, about 18 months.
18 months.
Wow. But I've known inquiries gone for 5 years. So it's but there is an interesting point that if the HMRC, who will demand replies in a couple of weeks and then take weeks and weeks and weeks to reply to it, if they don't answer and you keep sending them letters, you can make issue a complaint. If you issue a complaint and they agree that they've done something wrong, then the accountant's costs are paid. Okay. So even the insurance company likes that because it doesn't cost them anything.
Yeah.
But it's if you've got good insurers, they'll also help you if you've got a problem. So you can always phone them up for advice because they normally have tax advisors within the insurance organisation. It's normally through a tax consultancy that's providing the insurance policy.
Yeah.
If you need some help, they're there, and that is worth every penny because you never know. There's no way that you would know HMRC are going to pick you out to be challenged.
Yeah.
It can be hit and miss. Some of it's pretty obvious. If you've got a good cash business, sooner or later you're going to get a question.
Of course. And so also to mention, so we did also mention about business growth. So I know you did mention that even getting your team to have 2 screens was a bit of a task of its own. So do you feel like there's certain operational bottlenecks in terms of the staff being willing to adopt some of these new technologies as well?
Yes, it's back to change and training. And it's easier in a bigger outfit because you've got an HR department, you've got a health and safety department, you've got a department managing the departments, and therefore they can issue a diktat to the staff and say, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And then if they don't like it, they'll either leave or they'll get made redundant.
Yeah.
But if you're in a smaller firm, it's not quite as easy. Because if you've got a key employee that you're working with, and you say, well, you're going to have 2 screens tomorrow, and he or she doesn't like it, there's not a lot you can do.
That's true.
If you've been working with them for 10 years, you're not going to say, well, hop it, and I'll get somebody else. Because they know the clients. They know the people they're dealing with. They know their customers. So you don't want to lose them. They're very valuable.
Yeah.
But again, the times have changed. When I started, you would tend to be in one job for a long time. Now, as you guys know, 2 or 3 years, if that, people tend to move. And that is not a good thing because it's a good thing in the experience, but it's not a good thing for a business because you've got to keep retraining people. And I suppose what will happen then is just more and more AI will take over because you can't rely on staff. And since COVID, I think it's got worse. I think the attitude with people working from home, when my team worked from home, we packed up. I read the press in February 20, and it was really scary. Some of the reports were really scary. And I said to my team, I think we're going to go and work from home. We're going to get out of this before it becomes a problem. We locked down, I think, 2 or 3 weeks before the government had the first lockdown. Then since then, we didn't think it was going to go on for much more than, say, 6 months, but it went on for a couple of years. And since then, the team are very happy because, one, they're better off because they don't pay their fares anymore. So therefore, they've got a pay rise immediately. And secondly, they don't have to travel into central London, which can be 2 to 2.5 hours a day. And now with all the protests going on, it can be worse. And that means I can give them, I trust them, I've been with them, they've been with me a long time. I don't mind if they don't work a full 7 hours a day for 5 days a week. If they want to work 10 hours one day and only 3 or 4 hours the next day, it doesn't worry me. As long as the work gets done, the clients are happy, fine.
Yeah.
That's the key. As long as the billing goes out at the end of the month or during the month, that's fine. Now, that works for some people. It doesn't work for others. It's certainly not working for big firms when they're call centers. When people are working from home, they haven't yet worked out how to transfer calls from A to B. And these are big organizations. We're not talking about my type of firm, but we're talking about multi-staff firms, businesses, where you try to ring up a bank and you've got to hang on, go through umpteen menus. Hopefully AI will stop that. But you go through umpteen menus and you still can't talk to a person. And then it says, we're very busy, had a lot of calls. You'll have to wait. Now, the good ones will say, if you leave your number, we'll call you back. You're in a queue and we'll call you back. That, I think, is a really good way of going forward. But the others, the moment you put the phone down, you've got nowhere. You wasted half an hour trying to get through to somebody and you've gained nothing. So in the end, you have your phone, you put the volume on so it's hands-free, and you just sit there and wait until somebody picks up. And that can be, can be half an hour, can be 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The same if you phone HMRC, they'll get very upset with me because I sit on an HMRC agents group. You can wait up to an hour and then they cut you off. So we don't do that. And they don't use email. It's only in special cases where they use email if the client permits. So what we are getting is lots of letters. We don't want letters anymore. It's bad enough. Emails are bad enough when you've got lots of them. But you don't want hard copy letters, which in the end you scan and you put on your system. It'd be much easier if the email came in and what you've got to do is develop a folder system so you can get to things. And sometimes I think I over elaborate with folders, and in the end I go and search and copy them all into one folder. It's quicker. But you've got to work out the best way because certain clients do certain things, have certain specialities. They're going to buy a new business. You want to put all the correspondence from the new business into one folder. And general correspondence, well, it doesn't really matter. But it's horses for courses. It's what you need for yourself that you like, and AI will help all that because AI will improve searches.
100%.
As Josh knows, this morning when I was searching for something and couldn't find it, and he helped me out. But that's another problem. How do you find things quickly? And searches are really important. And I think AI will improve searching tremendously.
Definitely.
On the topic of AI, as we know, AI, it helps automating tasks and, reducing a lot of manual work significantly. Where do you see the processes still slowing down, perhaps, in client onboarding or compliance?
I see it with staff because you've got to get your staff to go through the changes with you. And then with clients, it's not so much the onboarding because they now know that we've got to do an anti-money laundering check. We've got to see the passport, a utility bill, or a bank statement. We don't now have to see them personally. That's a big change. We can now see them on something like this, and I won't mention all the names. But on the phone, you can see people on the phone. So as long as you've seen the person, that's really helpful. And the other thing that we have to watch, which I watch for, is when they send me a passport or a driving license, is it in date? So I found a few where they've been out of date. The client doesn't even know that they're out of date. So heaven help them if they're going on holiday or they're going on business. So we point that out. So that's a big problem. Due diligence is very useful because you get to know your client before they are your client or as they become your client. Because when you've acted for somebody for a long time, a good accountant can almost predict what they're going to do next. And sometimes we say to clients, why don't you do this? And then 10 years later, they do it. I mean, that's the problem when you act for somebody for a long time. And COVID has forced that onto people. You know, I've had people with different workshops in different places doing different things. And I've said to them for a long time, why do you need to have them around the country in different places? Why don't you have it in one place and make sure you've got a good delivery service of the product you're selling to your reps in different places when you need it? Yeah. And that with COVID, we found that they've actually shut other workshops down and moved it to one head office and done just that. But it took COVID to do it rather than me. And you know, it's different. You see things differently, and it really depends what the client wants you to do. Mm-hmm. You know, it's know your client. If your client wants you to help, they'll tell you. If they don't want you to help, they'll also tell you. You know, you can come up with a good idea and they'll say, I'm not interested. Yeah. You know, so it's know your client. Yeah. That's the key.
Yeah, that's true. I was also going to say it's really important to, you know, try and get that person, for example, if you did want a client, to get them to actually see value in what you are trying to, you know, put towards them. But I guess it's all about the conversation that you have with them. But yeah, you're right. Know your client, right?
Yeah, well, also
and talk to your client. Talk to your client as much as you can, and that's why I was saying to you the other day with the January 31st tax return deadlines. My colleague keeps a record of every reminder he's sent to the client over the last 9 months, and we get to December, and I get a list of all the people that haven't responded, and. He specialises in doing the tax returns, and I say to him, and we've agreed for years now that he won't talk to a client because he'll never get finished in time, which we do every year. I'm very proud of it. We get everything done every year, however tough, and that's therefore I make the calls, and it's great because I actually get to talk to my clients. The days of the meeting 2 or 3 times a year have gone out the window. Nobody has time anymore to get to a meeting. Mm-hmm. If you do it on the technology like we're doing today, it's done within a few minutes. Yeah, they don't have to travel, they don't have to queue, they don't have to wait for me at a meeting. Yeah. Normally it's the other way around. I'm waiting for them at the meeting because I've had some difficulty getting there. So that's all changed. So that the opportunity of being able to talk to clients because of their tax returns, great. I talk to so many. Unfortunately, it tends to be the same few every year, but it's more than a few, and we still get done. Yeah. And my colleague, he's just great at it. I know how frustrated he gets, but he gets it all done. And we have one client that used to call us at 7:30 on the 31st of January every year, in the evening, not in the morning. And we still get it done. But you see, things have moved on. Before technology, we would have to do tax returns by hand and deliver them by hand. And at Euston Tower, which is where HMRC had a big office, there used to be a queue around the block. And one of my colleagues would drive there with me. And one of us would get out with a big box of tax returns. And the other would go and try and find a parking space. And we'd have the queue carrying this big box round the block until we got in. And then you literally put it down. You didn't have any record of what you delivered. They didn't stamp it or anything. You just put it down and left. But you just had to queue. You don't do that anymore. With the fact that it's all being done online, you just file everything online. The biggest headache is when your software fails at the last minute. And it can fail because HMRC's tax computer is so busy collecting tax returns. It can go wrong. Or your own tax return software can go wrong. And HMRC will fine you if your returns are a day late. It's £100 fine. And if you haven't paid your tax, you pay on time, you pay interest on a daily basis. And at the end of the first month, February, they charge you 5% surcharge. So over the last week, where some of the big banks have had a problem, and a lot of people have had difficulty paying their tax, I hear the revenue say, "Oh, don't worry about the penalty. That won't have, the tax return's gone in, so it's the payment that hasn't gone. Don't worry about that. There's no extra penalty until the 1st of March, which is actually 28th of February, but that's when they issue the penalty. But what they don't say is they're still charging you interest from day one."
Oh, don't know that.
And so that's a bit naughty. I suspect either Barclays will be paying the interest. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned the bank, should I? But it was headline news, wasn't it? So they'll be paying the penalty, or the revenue will be conceding and on appeal and say, no, we won't charge you. But knowing how short of money the government is, I suspect that it'll be the other way around.
I definitely agree.
It's very frustrating because clients, the revenue was, HMRC will say to you, you've had since April the 5th to do your, or April the 6th to do your tax return. Why did you leave it till the 31st of January? But why not? The law is you've got to the 31st of January to file your tax return. Why are they, if they want to change it, change it. Otherwise, you set the date. That's how it is. Why do you want to do it? If you owed a big refund, then you get your tax return done quickly. It's amazing how those get done quickly to get the refund. But if they've got a liability, most of them don't want to do anything until the last minute. But the silly thing is they should put the return in, knowing that they've got the big liability, and go and talk to HMRC in advance and say, we haven't got the cash this year to pay it. Can we have a scheme with you, a payments scheme with you, where we can pay you, but they'll still charge you interest. So, but they do negotiate payment terms, and that's something else that you've got to do. But because of technology changes now, certain things we have to get the client to go online to sign in on certain things, and then they have to tell the revenue online that they've got an accountant. We're not allowed to do it. Whereas in the past, there was a form, it was called a 648. You'd send the form in, and that will be at the end of it. Now, that seems to be gradually disappearing, and it's all got to be done in an automated fashion. The irony of that is that they don't send emails for the correspondence. So you can write to HMRC and then wait weeks for a reply. And some things are replied very quickly, some are not. And if I say the revenue rather than HMRC, we were brought up with the Inland Revenue and Customs and Excise for VAT. Then they merged the two. First of all, they merged the National Insurance Office with HMRC. Then they've merged the VAT office. So now you've got HMRC does VAT, NIC, tax, valuations, property valuations. So there's a whole series of things they're doing. Then they wonder why they haven't got enough staff.
Yeah.
And they're outsourcing their debt collection now. That's a problem because of all the scams. They can't phone me up and they say, we've got a letter from so-and-so. We then have to check it very carefully to see that all the reference numbers match, because some of them are a scam. And there's another scam that's used, and that's, we owe you some money. And clients phone us up and say, why didn't you tell us? You've had one of those?
Yes.
Why didn't you tell us that we're owed some money? And we say, you're not owed any money. Just destroy that letter. Do not answer it in any way.
Yeah. Or the other ones, the text messages of, we've delivered your parcel, or we haven't delivered your parcel. Please call.
Yeah, and the threats.
Yeah.
And the threats, which if you don't do something, we're going to do nasty things to you, and they're not very nice either. But the scamming is really, really difficult. You can get caught out so easily.
Yeah.
And I'm very cautious. The thing to do is watch the email address.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the key, the email address. If there's no email address, or there's some crazy email address, just delete it.
100%.
I mean, that's something which the first question I ask anybody if they phone me up is, what's the email address you've received it from?
Yeah, you did ask me that question today, didn't you? Yeah. But Howard, looking ahead, right? how do you
Mhm.
envision the role of financial advisors evolving as technology takes a larger role? Like in your opinion, what should be the balance between human insight and machine efficiency? What's your thoughts on that?
It's obvious which way it's going, but it's already been changing. I mean, the days when, believe it or not, I was also an IFA in my spare time. The reason that happened was that clients would say to me, "We don't trust the IFA. Could you arrange a pension scheme? Could you arrange a mortgage? What life policy goes with it?" There was one company which would do a life policy, but if you moved, they'd terminate the policy and you'd have to start again. Whereas one of the other big boys, you just stayed with the same policy when you went into the new place. You may want to top it up. And what we did it with a certain company. And when the 25 years were up, the terminal bonuses were just phenomenal. So we get a client phone you up saying, in the days when the kids got married, so-and-so is getting married in a few weeks' time, and the house is now paid for, but look at the money we just got back on this policy. It's going to pay for the wedding.
Yeah.
And they were happy. They were really, really happy. That changed a bit when they went to 15-year mortgages rather than 25-year mortgages. It doesn't work so well with a life policy on 15 years rather than 25. But where IFA come in, there's a difference now because most IFAs get paid a fee. They don't get a commission in the same way that we used to. So there's a big difference. And that's the other thing is that with the web, you can now go online and you can look up the things. You can watch the Martin Lewis Money Show. There's so many different things online and on TV helping you to make a decision, but it's not always easy. And therefore it is better to take some advice. There might be things that you don't see on TV that can be done.
Yeah.
And those are the things that you need an advisor. As an accountant, I'm allowed to advise, but I can't do whole of market research. So I can say you might need a pension. And if the client says to me, "Well, we want to do it with one of the big boys, can you do it?" Yes, I can, because they've chosen the company. But if they say, "Which company should I go to?" I can't do it because I can't advise them.
Yeah.
And the same applies to the challenger banks, because people will phone me up and they'll say, "Which bank should we use?" Your generation knows what a challenger bank is, but most of the senior generation know the big 4 or 5, and that's it.
Yeah.
And one of the challenger banks has had some terrible publicity of late. What I am allowed to do is tell people who not to go to.
Okay.
But there's one challenger bank which is not registered with the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, unless it has since it hit the press. And if any clients are using that bank, I would say, for heaven's sake, don't use it, because your first £85,000 is insured by this compensation scheme. But you've got to prove that you haven't done anything stupid. Most of the banks will pay out. There's all sorts of changes happening that, you should pay the first £100, or you should do this, you should do that. But that's because they're getting so many claims.
Yeah.
Because people are being conned. And that's the biggest problem is you don't actually need violent crime anymore to be a criminal. They were saying on the radio this morning, and I thought it was about 25 million of phones a year. They were saying it's £50 million of stolen phones a year.
Wow.
Yeah, you see those.
And they were saying, why is it that we're not taught how to protect the phones? You can do certain settings on phones. Most people with a phone wouldn't know which setting to press because there's so many items in settings that you've got to find the right one. And it should be much simpler than that. It should be one of the first ones. You can protect this phone by hitting the setting.
Yeah.
And so those are things that are dangerous. Walking down the street's dangerous with a phone. You don't know whether someone's going to grab it from you.
That's true. I feel
And coming back to your financial services point, that AI will be, you'll tell AI and the AI will give you the answer.
Yeah. But as you said,
you want to talk to somebody because that person may say this company gives a better service than that company.
Yeah. But yeah, even as you said, in terms of not having the knowledge of what to do with your phone to ensure the security, I think that's also with AI. I think it's just a training and a learning that has to be implemented to allow people to be comfortable and confident using these tools. So I think there's definitely a learning aspect that needs to be put into place in adopting new technologies, even protecting your phone as well, to be honest.
Yes, yeah, I'm absolutely right. There's no question that that's got to happen. And also, you get people that will give you an order for something, as we've seen lately with cheese and wine and things like that. They give you the order. The truck will deliver the cheese to wherever it is, and then another truck will be waiting. They'll load it and disappear. And so, these are people they thought they were dealing with. The seller thought they were dealing with the company that they normally deal with, and they were conned into believing it. And you've got to start saying, well, how? It's such a big order. Why didn't anybody check? Why didn't they ring up the normal buyer and say, oh, it's nice to hear from you. We can help, and check that it was a genuine order. And that's so easy to go wrong. So again, AI could be used against you, because one of the things that happened to solicitors was AI years ago with on conveyancing and a house, that you'd send your money to a solicitor would ask you to send money in to buy a house, but they were hacked, and the hacker would change the bank account numbers in the hack. So they say to send it to a Big Four bank, but the account number had been changed. So you do what you were told, you send it off, and it ended up in somebody else's bank account. And a few solicitors got caught out by that. So you've got to be very careful. And one of the things I do, I've got a very good tip. If you open up a new account for somebody, not just in a bank, but for a customer or a supplier, always make the first payment £1, because you then check, did they get the money? Yeah. And if the answer is yes, you're home and dry. Yeah. If the answer is no, it only cost you £1.
Yeah. I'm definitely keep
that works. That works extremely well. But you have to tell your supplier or if your customer's contacting you to check with you first that you've got the money.
Yeah.
And I do it every time, and people are beginning to understand that now. Whereas in the past they sort of think it was a joke, now they understand why. And so, because most of them have got a phone, so they've got their bank account on the phone, which I think is incredibly dangerous. But that's another matter. That's personal view at the moment. They see the pound comes in, and then I get a text back saying we've got the money. Now that phone could have been stolen. That's another problem. And if they've hacked into the phone, then they could do it. But then the client or the supplier will tell you that the phone's been stolen, so you're more cautious. But that's a very neat little trick to protect yourself. Nowadays, as you know, when you try and set up a new account, it tells you whether it's a genuine account or not.
Yeah,
that's another thing. Don't always believe it. I'm very cynical about all these things. I believe AI is the future. I believe in the way forward. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. But you've got to be very, very careful, because you can get tricked so easily.
Yeah. So would you say that are there any particular technologies or trends that you're excited about that could potentially revolutionize your sector, that you're aware of in terms of within the AI space?
Yes, your accounts will be done in an automated fashion. I think it's the way forward. People in my profession won't like it, but it's got to happen. Yeah. Also, audits, the way that audit is embraced has got to change. It's very expensive, especially for small firms. And that needs to be thought out very carefully, because there are companies that are below the thresholds for audit, and they still need an audit because the bank says they need it. And that is really a very expensive process. So as an accountant, you have less time to spend with your client than you do ticking boxes.
Yeah. Would you say it's a time-consuming task as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, ticking boxes, when you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boxes to tick and make notes to satisfy your regulator, it defeats the object. The whole idea of working with firms has been to be able to talk to them and say, well, why did you do this? Why did you do that? There's a better way of doing it. It depends what type of accountant you are. Because some accountants just do the job, like in all businesses. Others will actually take an interest in what the client's doing. And maybe I take more of an interest than others. I get it wrong sometimes. But largely, you don't always see them change it straight away, but it changes.
Yeah.
And things change all the time. And that's how it is. We've got to live with change. But change is not being taught as far as I can see, isn't being taught in school.
It sounds like an infrastructure problem from the root cause, essentially, because from schools, from colleges, it sounds like it's definitely a root cause to us leading to all these issues with adopting, essentially.
Yes, but it's all change, and how do you keep up with it? How do you know what's good and what's not good? And the only way you're going to find out is going on the web, doing your research, seeing what Trustpilot says.
Yeah.
That's if it's accurate. Because the web itself, the big companies are not weeding out things in the way they should, according to the press, according to government, right? and I think that needs to be thought about a bit more as well.
Yeah.
And they're making huge sums of money, and just incredible. And good luck to them. I think for Bill Gates and Zuckerberg and others, I mean, the fact they had the idea and thought about it and came up with this, and that, what you're doing now, people started doing podcasts and it's been very successful. But you've got to make them fun. And hopefully you've had a little chuckle from time to time with some of my remarks.
Definitely did.
Hopefully I'm not being too controversial.
No,
I apologise to all the names that I've mentioned. Will no doubt sue me next week.
no, Howard, it's been a really insightful conversation, especially your experience and perspective on your industry, and of course your storytelling is very immaculate. I know you get that from your wife. And also, integrating technology with traditional financial services they're very truly enlightening. So I say we've come to the end of the podcast.
Yeah, I'll very quickly end up with the funniest story of all, which was technology. When we introduced it in London, we decided that we ought to have a website, and our institute hadn't got one. And the London Society decided we would lead the way. So we set it all up, and we were able to go from here to here and do different clever things. And because, as you know, I like to plan things in advance, I actually printed out all my slides. And when it came back to, because I had to do the introduction of all of this, it was me that was launching it. And when it came back to me to tell people about what we'd just done and how to do it for the future, of course, the system packed up, didn't it? So I had in the front of me all my slides. And I picked them up one by one and said, this is what the next slide says. And I literally went through them by hand, every slide. And that was my launch of the internet for accountants in London. On paper. So you can't. That's the other thing that I said to you at the beginning. Anybody that's going into AI or doing anything needs to plan, and you need to do trial runs, and you need to get things working because things go wrong. And that's the problem, and you've got to be able to handle it. And my other advice to you is, if things go wrong, make a joke of it, because you make a joke of yourself. Because if you don't, they get incredibly boring. If I say the wrong thing, and I've been picked up at meetings for saying the wrong thing, sometimes it's worth even better, because more people will put their hand up and ask the next question. They point out you don't know what you're talking about. Great. And on that, you can see I haven't known what I'm talking about all morning. So we better leave it at that. But thanks, guys. I've enjoyed that. I think it's been great. I wish you every success with what you're doing. I think you can do incredibly well in this field. And influencing is definitely the big way forward. The question is, you need the million.
Yeah.
Then you need the accountant. That's the key.
Howard, it's all work in progress. But before we do wrap up, of course, we'll say there's one thing we wanted to do, which is really, really important, which was for our next guest and also our viewers as well. We would like you to think of something on the top of your head, like a memorable quote that will benefit ourselves and the viewers that are watching as well.
Oh, good luck. So if you are prepared to put the hours in and work hard and think about your clients or customers or users, I don't know which word you use these days, that's because I'm so old-fashioned. If you think about them, what do they want? And you don't always know, and then you'll say something or do something, and everybody will want to watch you. And if you're controversial on certain things, and I have been a bit controversial this morning, I think you may find that more people will join in. And you've got to be prepared to take the criticism when it comes and cope with it. So it's really up to you. You are the future. That's my quote. You are the future.
Wow.
Oh, amazing. I think it deserves a round of applause. What do you think, Lamari?
I definitely much appreciate it. Honestly, it's been a pleasure.
I think it's the other way around. You're being brave enough to put me on this.
Yeah.